We are live.
All right. All right, welcome in. And when it's a big-time series, we got to call in the big-time guest. OU softball play-by-play voice Chris Plank joins us. Plank, I'm going to start with a little bit of a hot take here.
Let's go.
Because when it comes to college softball rivalries, I contend that Bama and Florida is number one. I think Bedlam's number two. What do you think?
There's going to be some people out on the West Coast that might bang the table for a little UCLA and either Oregon or Washington in that mix. But with what's transpired over the last, you think since Kenny Gajewski took over in 2016, Oklahoma State's been a regular contender. This series has been for the Big 12 championship. So I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, it's Bama, Florida's up there. You know, obviously with Virginia Tech and Florida State becoming something over the last few years when they play. But yeah, Bedlam to me is right up there, and I hope it continues, for years to come in softball.
Is Oklahoma State a little beat up coming into this weekend? I thought I heard you mention something about Miranda Ellis.
Yeah, she's been hurt from what I've heard and what I'm watching and what I've listened to. She's battling through it right now. I don't think we'll see her pitch. It seems like it's something to do with maybe a labrum or a shoulder. I'm not for certain, but she hit. She was in the lineup this week.
Middle of the order, I think, in the Florida State series, right?
She didn't necessarily look the confident self swinging the bat, but she's a major part of Oklahoma State's attack, and I got to give her all the credit in the world, man. She is, she's persevered and maintained, and Oklahoma has usually hit her pretty well, and she hasn't always had the best series against Oklahoma, but I mean, regardless, she's battling to try to play this weekend. It'll be interesting to see if she goes.
I mean, just like the rest of college softball, I guess, Oklahoma State's got so many familiar names now that we've seen for 3 and 4 years. Is it just easy to say that where Oklahoma State is best is they're best at the plate? And if they are dangerous this weekend, it's going to be their ability to pour in runs on a team like OU, or is it somewhere else where you think they're best?
Yeah, no, I think you're onto it. It's funny because I was actually digging a little bit into Kelly Maxwell's career against Oklahoma, and just by my memory, I feel like Oklahoma has hit her pretty well, and she's really good. I mean, she's a homegrown player, and by that I mean she's not a transfer, which is really unique in Kenny Gajewski's system, because most of the players that we've seen that have really excelled have been Kenny Gajewski or have been transfers into the program. But yeah, like for instance, last year in 5 1/3 innings against Oklahoma, she gave up 5 runs on 9 hits. She then blasted 1 inning against them in the Big 12 championship game. So she's had some struggles against Oklahoma, but she's been around, right? She's a name that but she's going to be it this weekend in the circle, I think, depending on how Miranda Ellis is. But you're right. I'm looking over the roster right now, and there's names that have been around for a minute at Oklahoma State. Morgan Wynn is a senior. Julia Cottrell, who had the game-winning home run as a Stillwater product, the game-winning home run for him, I think it was against Texas in one of their games. Cindy Pennington is a Sand Springs product that seems like she's been around for a moment. Haley Busby, Carly Petty, who took the ground ball off her face last year. So, yeah, there's a lot of familiarity there with their hitters, and I think that's going to be where Oklahoma State is. They're going to try to – it seems wild to say it, but, they're going to try to outscore Oklahoma. And I mean that every game you try to outscore somebody. But they're not going into it, I think, feeling like they can shut out Oklahoma. I mean, they're going to try to score with them, and we'll see how it goes.
OU's bounced back in conference play, sweeping Iowa State at home, sweeping Kansas at home, and it's been well documented. I mean, everyone seemingly remembers what Patty said about a month ago, is that she feels like her team, at least at that point in the season, was playing at a 6, compared to what they could be. After that loss to Texas, if you had to guess, and maybe you've asked her this question, how do you feel Patty feels like this team is playing now after that Texas loss and what they've done since then?
Yeah, I don't think she dropped them, to be honest with you. The concern has always been that the moment whenever you start heaping some praise on this group, then maybe you see a little bit of a backslide.
Yeah.
The Sunday game against Baylor, the Saturday game against Texas. The Saturday game against Texas was when they gave them their championship mindset bracelets because they had played so well in that series. So they have they've dealt with great things being said about them all year long. But for some reason, Robbie or Tyler,
You can call me Robbie. It's fine.
I got a text from Robbie right in the middle of that. But for some reason, and again, I don't know why, but when Patty Gasso starts praising them, you don't see that same oomph maybe that you did the day before. And I think Coach realizes that. It's kind of a wild thing to think about. But in what we've seen since that Texas loss, even the weird first game of 2 Friday against Iowa State, kind of the fact that they played 2 7-inning games this weekend, which for some people panics them. Oklahoma was up 4-0 in a game, and I had a guy who regularly checks in with me text me and say, we need a rally. And I'm like, we're up 4-0. So it's a really high level of expectation, and I feel like they're in a really good spot because she jumped them up, Tyler, to a 7. And I think after what we saw this weekend, probably even a 7.5. So it'll be really exciting to see if they can get to an 8, 9, or even 10 by the time we hit the postseason.
This is the crunch time portion of the season, man. You got a top 10 matchup at home, then you're into postseason play after this. And we've seen Patty experiment in the postseason in the circle. We remember that in the regionals last year against Wichita State. She was sending a message to G. Juarez and to Shannon Sale. Now, Nicole May did start the game on Sunday, and by all accounts, she pitched pretty well. And she has this year. She's been great. Do you think that this is going to be a 3-pitcher staff moving into the postseason? Or is there a chance that maybe this staff shrinks to just Hope Troutwine and Jordy Ball as we move forward to the biggest games of the year?
I think it's a really good question. And I think if you paid attention, that would be something like you have. But as fans listening to this or watching it, then that would be something that would seem like it's inevitable, right? But I'm here. I think Nicole May is very much a part of this team's plans. And here's why. Think about last year at this time. You brought up the Norman Regional in that final game. I think it was Olivia Raines, who's now at Texas Tech, started the game. And the first reliever out of the bullpen was a pitcher who had hardly thrown throughout the season. So, yeah, they never had G. Juarez at her best until the World Series. I mean, she didn't pitch in the Super Regional, right? I mean, Nicole May was the star of the Super Regional. So I still think there's the best of Nicole May to come, but I feel that same way about Hope, and I feel that same way about, obviously, Jordy. Here's what I will say, Tyler. Here's one thing that's kind of worth keeping an eye on. I think a lot of this, too, will be based on matchups and kind of how Jen Rocha feels about what a certain pitcher's stuff will do against a certain type of swing and how prominent and I guess repetitive that swing is in a team's lineup. So, with Jordy Ball, she throws every pitch. So does Hope Troutwine. So does essentially Nicole May. But, if you have a team that is really good at, hitting the off speed and has the patience, you might not throw Nicole May. But if you see a team that has struggled with the off speed, Nicole May is someone that you're going to see in that game. And I think with those matchups and the diverse skill set of these pitchers, it gives you options. So I still say 3, and we'll see all 3 pitchers this weekend, I'm sure of it. But, man, I also think there's something to be said about if the hand gets hot, you've been able to rest her throughout the season. It hasn't been and I'm just, I was trying to pull up stats while I was bringing it up. But, it hasn't been a situation where you have someone who's thrown, say, 250 innings at this point, and then they're just, clawing to the finish line. You've had diversity in that staff. So I think if you get a hot hand, though, you would have no concerns riding it because that pitcher has got the rest they needed throughout the season.
Looking forward to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you're the perfect person to answer this. And I don't know, what the highest attended OU softball game is ever or the craziest environment that you've ever seen at Marita Hines Field. But with all the attention that's been on this team this year, with this weekend basically deciding, who wins the Big 12, with Oklahoma State being a top 10 team, a home run village is back open again. It's sold out. Is there a chance that this is the highest attended or craziest atmosphere that we've ever seen for an OU home softball game?
I would put it there in the regular season. I mean, that was pretty wild against Washington last year.
Yeah.
And in 2016, it's a minute now, and it was my first super regional I'd ever called every game of. And those Ragin' Cajun fans, Tyler, they were great. So, but I think it's got a chance. And let's add in a couple of things. You know, Kenny Gajewski made it a point last year that he wasn't going to do the home away home in the series. They wanted all 3 games in Stillwater. And his reasoning was, hey, we got a home field advantage. Now, Oklahoma still won 2 of 3 and won the women's College World Series in the Big 12. But that win for Kenny might have been worth it. But now he's got to come here all 3 games. And, you know, you can say whatever you want about the Sooner fan base and how it needs to be crazier outside of just the T-shirt toss and when Sweet Carolina's played. But I know that they took that as a challenge and a charge from Coach Gasso to be louder. And I think you're going to see, especially what a start time on Saturday, right?
Oh, yeah.
4 o'clock on Saturday. I mean, perfect. You can get a little lunch. You go out and experience Home Run Village. You take in the game. You're done in time for dinner. I mean, it's a great spot, I think, for that game. So, I think over a 3-game set for the consistency of the passion and energy, I fully expect Sooner fan to bring it and to be one of the wildest environments we've been a part of.
Hey, last question. Want to ask about someone in particular who was a huge part of the national championship last year, and she's been really, really good, I think, for the most part this year. Kenzie Hanson hitting a little bit of a tough stretch right here. I guess what's your confidence level that she's going to get back to maybe being her best at the plate as we near the postseason here?
100% confident that she'll be back. But this is quite a streak, you know, that she's been in the midst of right now. I did the numbers actually on it, and I want to say it was like 5 for 35 or something at one point, you know, and 3 of those 5 hits had been home runs. You know, you go back and she didn't have a hit this weekend. So, here I got it. Oh my gosh, it's worse than I thought. She is 5 for her last 45.
Wow.
And 3 of those 5 hits have been home runs. I don't think it's any secret that she's been, you know, battling through some issues throughout this season. With her leg, but she's battling through those things, Tyler. And she's an important part of this team. And I think it shows you how good and how deep this team is when one of their best hitters, candidate for MVP of the Women's College World Series last year, Team USA member, is not 100% at the plate right now. And there's still just boat racing people. You know, maybe it ends up being something really good as the season progresses towards the postseason, because with what, you know, Kenzie Hanson's always been a 3-4 hole hitter, maybe the 5 spot. Well, now you move her down. Maybe you get that pop back in the 7 or the 8 holes. So I'm 100% confident she's going to get things rolling. But the clock is ticking. She had a really good debrief with JT before they left from Norman to Lawrence. She had some good cage sessions. I was watching her. She looked great in batting practice. So I think it's just a matter of time. And she's still hitting the ball hard. But she's also, you know, that was a 10-game stretch, right, where she wasn't starting. At least it was 10-day. Like I keep wanting to go back to my notes to make sure I'm factually accurate for you. But, yeah, you know, she had a stretch where she missed 10 games from March 10th to March 22nd. And she was coming off being as hot as she had been all season long. She had 3 hits against Minnesota. So she'll be fine. And it's really cool to see the way that the defense has continued to be strong from her and how the rest of the offense has stepped up around her.
He's Chris Plank, Sooner softball play-by-play voice. Plank, you the man. I know that this is the most fun part of the year, so enjoy it this weekend. Big-time 3-game series.
Thanks, Tyler. You guys are awesome.
All right.